Devotion 18, Luke23. Then the whole assembly got up and brought him a Pilate. They began to accuse Jesus, asserting, "We found this man misleading and perverting our nation, and forbidding us to pay taxes to Caesar, and claiming that he himself is Christ, a king." So Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered, "It is just as you say." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no guilt in this man." But they were insistent and said, "He stirs up to the people, teaching through Judea, starting from Galilee, as far as here." When Pilate heard it, he asked whether the man was a Galilean, and when he learned that he belonged to the jurisdiction of Herod, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly pleased. He had wanted to see him for a long time because of what he had heard about him. He was hoping to see some sign, something spectacular done by him. And he questioned him at some length, but Jesus made no reply. The chief priests and scribes were standing there, continuously accusing him heatedly. Herod, with his soldiers, after treating him with contempt and mocking and ridiculing him, dressed him in a gorgeous robe and sent him back to Pilate. Now that the very day Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate summoned the chief priests and rulers and the people, and said to them, "You brought this man before me as one who corrupts and incites the people to rebel. After exclaiming him before you, I have found no guilt in this man regarding the charges which you make against him. No, nor has Herod, and he sent him back to us. And indeed, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him, and to teach him a lesson and release him." But they shouted all together, saying, "Away with this man, and release this Barabbas to us." Pilate addressed them again, wanting to release Jesus. But they kept shouting out, "Crucify him, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "Why, what has he done? I have found no guilt in him, demanding death. Therefore I will punish him and release him." But they were insistent and unrelenting, demanding with loud voices that Jesus be crucified, and their voices began to prevail and accomplish their purpose. Pilate pronounced sentence that their demand be granted, and he released the man that they were asking for, who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, but he handed over Jesus to their will. But when they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and placed him on the cross to carry behind Jesus. Following him was a large crowd of the people, including women who were mourning and wailing for him. But Jesus, turning toward them, said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming where they will say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that have not given birth, and the breasts that have not been nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others also, who were criminals, were being led away to execution with him. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him and the criminals, one on the right and one on the left. Jesus was saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." And they cast lots, dividing his clothes among themselves. Now the people stood by watching, but even the rulers ridiculed and sneered at him, saying, "He saved others from death. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ, the Messiah, and the anointed of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up to him and cruelly of him, offering him sour wine, and sarcastically saying, "If you are really the king of the Jews, save yourself. Now there is also an inscription above him, He is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who had been hung beside him kept hurling abuse at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself from death, and us." But the other one rebuked him, saying, "Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? We are suffering justly, because we are getting what we deserve for what we have done. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he was saying, "Jesus, please remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus said to him, "I assure you and most solemnly say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. because of the sun, was obscure, and the veil of the Holy of the Holies of the temple was torn in two. Jesus, crying out with a loud voice, saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. Now, when the centurion had been taken place, he began praising and honoring God, saying, Certainly this man was innocent. And all the crowds who had gathered for this spectacle, when they saw what had happened, began to return, beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who had accompanied him from Galilee were standing at a distance watching these things. A man named Joseph, who was a member of the council, a good and honorable man, a man from Arimathea, the city of Jews, who was waiting and expecting the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus, and after receiving permission, he took it down and wrapped it in a linen cloth and laid him in a tomb cut into the rock, where no one had yet been laid. It was the day of preparation for Sabbath, and the Sabbath was dawning. Now the women who had come with him from Galilee followed closely, and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they went back and prepared spices and ointments and sweet-smelling herbs. And on the Sabbath they rested in accordance to the commandments.